let's talk to Hannah, pronoun she, her, who is a theist who is deconstructing, has a very conservative Southern Baptist family, trying to navigate sexuality and the church with her son coming out as pan. Any help would be appreciated. That's what I've got right here. Hannah, you were on the line with Forrest and Austin. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. That's a hell of a call to follow up on.
Yeah, I feel like you'll be nicer.
Yeah, I plan on it. So nice to meet y'all. I'm just now getting into the whole, I guess this whole side of YouTube and streaming and just sort of these types of videos. I had no idea that any of this existed until my husband somehow came across Kent Hovind, and he's actually debated him a couple of times.
Yeesh.
And then offended him and hasn't been invited back. So we it's a whole thing. And I grew up really Southern Baptist. My entire life has been rooted in, the King James version, and it's a walk by faith, not by sight type of life. My parents were very totalitarian. It was, you follow what we believe. We are in church every Sunday. If the doors are open, we're there. Grew up listening to a lot of like Mark Lowry and a lot of theists. And so it's just, when I met my husband,
you've been through it.
Yeah. When I met my husband, his family is very much on the opposite side of this. His father has actually written a really good book on atheism called Religion Refuted. And, they've sort of opened my eyes to like what the world is and what kind of exists out there. And, I've always sort of had doubts. I've always had questions, just things that didn't line up, things that didn't make sense. And so dealing with all of this and then navigating through having a now 15-year-old, it's kind of a struggle because he's come out as pansexual, and having to look at my child and tell him, listen, if, I'm going to support you no matter what, I'm going to love you no matter what, I'm happy for you. I'm pansexual, it's totally fine. But if you ever want to continue your relationship with your grandparents, that's a part of yourself that you never get to share. That's not a conversation that you should have with your kid.
Mm-mm.
And
no,
so it's such a struggle to me to understand how my entire life, there's I look at all of the situation. I look at, the science behind atheism. I look at the science behind biology and behind evolution and behind just the world as it exists. And, I believe in evolution. I believe, all of these things. And it just doesn't make sense to me how to navigate a kid that is pansexual, but still wants to be involved in church. And is it wrong for me to tell him, yeah, sure, let's go to church, do what you want to do, believe what you want to believe? It doesn't, it feels like giving him that support should be what I'm doing, because I never had that option. But at the same time, knowing what I know, seeing just how religion is and how corrupt it is, am I on the bad side of parenting here if I let him explore this and dive into something that could be corrupt? And I don't really know how to navigate this. And I don't know if this is the right place to call in. I don't know. I just don't know. I have a lot of questions.
It's a good place to start. What you're describing is surprisingly common. Like, I know, I think Rhett and Link from Good Mythical Morning, that was one of their things. They were very Christian, and as they got more famous and they were hiring staff and everything, they told this story about how they had this guy that was working for them that was gay, and they loved this guy because he was their best friend, working with him every day, making their show great. And they told the story, they hugged this guy and they're like, I love you so much, man. And they meant it. And they're like, after the show ends, everything, we are supposed to hate him. We're supposed to tell him he's going to hell. We're supposed to change his mind. We're supposed to try to save him. That doesn't feel good. None of that makes any sense. And that was a big part of their deconstruction beginning. And so that when you love somebody and that person doesn't fit into the very, very parochial, limited just cruel box that Christianity creates for people. It's a great way to start to see the cracks and to start to, for yourself. If you're asking me how to raise a kid, I'm not great at that because I'm not a parent on purpose. But I can say that you can be there for him and you can love him however he is and whoever he is. And if you want to talk to about, like, is it appropriate to continue going to church? I would say maybe don't continue bringing this person around people who think that he's deserves to be tortured for all eternity. But that's just me. If you can find a way to make it work for you, that's fine, I guess. But I think if you're already on this deconstruction path, you're going to find a better and better and better way to live in a way that is more meaningful to you and more true to him than it is, useful to the church. Austin, you look like you were going to say something too.
Well, I mean, I completely agree with everything Forrest just said. And I also I really feel for your predicament, Hannah. It is incredibly common. And this is such a common first step toward deconstruction. It was for me. I was a musical theater major in college. So a lot of my closest friends, as you can imagine, were gay people, because there's a lot of gay people in theater. And it's just, it's amazing what it can do to know someone and know kind of what you've been taught about, what a person's like when they've fallen from the countenance or the light of God, and how a person's supposed to behave and stuff. And then you meet someone and you go, but this person's behaving in a more Christ-like manner than the people that I know who are followers of Christ and whatever. And it definitely was a beginning for me. What I would say, again, I don't have kids, and I echo Forrest's thing. I'm not here to be an expert on how to raise a kid. My sort of maybe unqualified advice would be to not put your kids somewhere where they are likely to experience harm that could be irreparable for them. What I will say really quick is, my niece recently, who's 21, reached out to the family in our group text. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. My whole family is Mormon, and I grew up in a Mormon community. Everybody that I went to school with and all my friends growing up were all LDS. My niece is 21, reaches out and she says, "Hey family, I just wanted to share with you an obituary of a friend of mine who I went to high school with and did theater with in high school. He died, and I went to his funeral and it was really hard." And I read this obituary and I knew immediately what had happened to this 20-year-old young man, because it's an obituary that I've read more times than I care to count in my life. And I know how it reads and I know how it's written. The families of these kids almost never say the word suicide in the obituary. They just say, our son or our daughter, who was too young to have died of a sudden heart attack or cancer or something like that. They just say they don't. And if it was cancer, they would say that. They'd say they lost their battle with cancer on such and such date, or, they died of a unexpected brain aneurysm. But every single time I read one of these obituaries, it just says, so-and-so, our beloved daughter died on this date. And then they just list a bunch of things about the kid that the kid liked. They said, they were a great friend. They really liked In-N-Out Burger. They really liked going to the movies with their friends. And I've read this obituary so many times in my life that I knew at the bottom of the obituary there would be a link to the AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, because I knew that this kid had died, pardon me, I'm sorry, by suicide. And I knew that this kid died by suicide because he was probably queer and he lived in a community that didn't accept him for being queer. And I've gotten so used to these really, really great people, really great kids, great people trying to raise great kids, putting them in places that are going to directly result in them not being alive anymore. And so my advice to you, heartfelt, would be to get your son as far away from those people as you possibly can, because there is not love for him there. There is not acceptance for him there. I was talking to a friend at lunch today about fat phobia, and she said, one of my friends called me fat phobic the other day, and I'm not fat phobic. I see other fat people and I think they look beautiful. She goes, I only am fat phobic about myself. I don't want to be fat. And I said, the exact same way with queer phobia. There are a lot of Christian queer people who have queer friends and they say, I love my queer friends. I just don't like it in me. I just want to repress it in myself. And it's maybe more pernicious and more dangerous when it's allowed to fester inside of the individual. So putting your child in an environment where that self-hatred is allowed to fester could be very, very dangerous. And I would caution against it.
Yeah. My sister came out as lesbian to my parents after her divorce recently, and that, gone over about as well as you would assume. And first off, I want to say I'm very sorry about that situation. That's terrible. And
I didn't even know the kid. It's just a sad situation. It's just yeah.
It's just it's so prevalent, and it hurts. And when my sister came out, my mother had a conniption, and she brought it up to me, and she had moved in with this person and made the statement that she just can't believe that this person, like that Ashley, would choose to live with a lesbian, and at the time didn't even know that Ashley was dating her, and she basically, as I said, it sounds to me like you're less concerned over the fact that her marriage is over, that all of this is falling around her, that her daughter is going through all of this, than you are with the fact that she's moved in with a lesbian. And her exact response to me was, of course I am. That's obviously the biggest issue. How can you not see that? The Bible says to protect your reputation at all costs.
Yeah.
And it floored me to hear this woman who was at every softball game that was, supportive and caring, because and moving away.
Well, the softball games, the softball game should have been the first 10. Okay. she should have known what she was supporting. She should have known.
Right, like knowing that she's been supportive, of me in my childhood, and then to see her in this aspect, it makes it even harder moving into like an aspiritual sort of situation in my life. Because I'm like, well, I've watched you be a good parent, and then I hear you say things like this, and I'm having problems quantifying where the hell your mind is. At what point, where does it lie? Is this just that you're embarrassed to have to tell people in your church that your daughter's a lesbian? Is this you struggling? I don't understand. I don't understand. And I want so much, because there are churches that support, people in the LGBT community. And if he wants to be involved in that, is that somewhere I move him? But also, I don't know that that's something that I believe in. So I don't know. Therapy is
I think it's important.
A heck of a tool.
I think it's important to recognize that there are churches which are welcoming of LGBT people, but they aren't there because they wanted to be necessarily. They're there because the church was losing money and they had to change their interpretation of the book. And it's the exact same reason as why there are churches, why predominantly churches are welcoming of interracial couples, when just a couple of decades ago, that was not the case. But then it became to a point where it's like, okay, well, if we keep being assholes, people are going to stop showing up. So actually, it turns out after 2,000 years, the book was totally in love with you, though. It said that you're fine. It said nobody ever made a mistake, but also it's totally different now. The same reason when you had women becoming ministers, no, that's absolutely not allowed. Oh shit, we kind of look bad, don't we? You know what, though? God loves everybody, it turns out. And just every generation, we find out that God loves a few more people, and then those people get to donate. And so that's just, I don't think that it's reasonable. If your son wants to continue exploring religion, I would never encourage you to try to take that away. They should be able to explore whatever they want. Everybody should be able to explore and ask questions and dive into trying to find meaning in their lives in whatever way they find necessary. That's all great. But I think the key is just to be aware that like these are the wolves, these people who call themselves the flock, they are the wolves, and they are going to try to take advantage no matter what. And if you're finding a church, and every Christian does this is not just you find a church that finally says what you want to hear and believes the way that you want to believe, and they reaffirm your personal interpretation of the Bible and your personal desires for a God. They don't tell you what you find the one that fits you first. To do that is just to ignore the fact that this very same religion has been and is being and will continue to be used to dehumanize you and your child and your relationship and every other part of your existence, so long as it doesn't fit with some other sect's version of this God. There's a reason there's over 40,000 denominations of Christianity alone. I don't think it's worth your time. I don't think you should withhold this from your child. I think your child should be allowed to explore, but I think your priority should be on, maybe not finding who are the least abusive people. It should just be avoiding abusive people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was, I lost if I could just really quick, I lost a friend recently because we couldn't agree on whether or not Nazis are Nazis, and I decided, I can abide a lot of ideological differences in my life, but I think right now I'm just sort of like, if you don't know what a Sig Heil salute looks like, and you do know what it looks like, but you can't call it what it is, then I don't think we can be friends. I don't think I can fuck with that. So like I lost this friend, but while we were arguing about that, while he was trying to tell me that Elon Musk was doing a autistic stim on stage and that it wasn't what it was, while we were arguing, and I was talking about how like lost in the woods he is with this conservative ideology, and like look how brainwashed you are. Like you can't call something as obvious as what Elon Musk is doing on stage. You can't, like, you've got to come up with all kinds of like rationalizations and justifications for it. He made this really fucked up comment. He goes, look at both of our lives. Who do you think's doing better? This is a guy who has made a fortune off of selling solar. And he lives in a mansion in Texas, and he's got 8 kids, and he's married. And I've never been married. I'm 37 years old, and I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in California. And he goes, look at our lives. Who goes, look at the evidence of like who's doing better. And I think Christian people really like to go to like all the wrong things to prove the fruits of like their belief system, that it's like, oh, I have money and I live in a really fancy house, so I can't be wrong. And I say, look at the fruits of our ideologies. Like you're standing on just centuries of dead bodies of people who have been, people who were burned at the stake for being witches, or, justified slavery for centuries because your magic book said it was okay to own people as property. Talks routinely about like how you should treat your slaves. Not that you shouldn't have slaves, but what the proper way to the proper decorum of slave owning is. Like if we actually look at like rather than looking at who has more money, because who the fuck gives a shit about that? That's the measure of a person's morality. Let's actually look at like the difference between what our two ideological stances has wrought in the world. And right now, you're standing on an epidemic of dead kids, dead trans kids, and dead queer kids who don't believe that there's a place for them in this world because they were unfortunately born into a community that told them that from the moment that they could understand what words are. And so you might, like I said, like Forrest said, you might be able to find like a little bit of a nicer version of it. But I don't know. I kind of right now I'm also on this kick where like I really like how Aldo the Apache in the movie Inglourious Bastards carves swastikas into Nazis' foreheads so that they can never, go forward in their life and go like, I was a part of that, but I'm not anymore. It's like, no, you wear that. And sometimes when I see these Christian sects that are like, no, we don't do the homophobia part anymore, I kind of want to be like, no, you need to keep wearing that. Like, I think you need to have the swastika carved in your head. And like, I don't think you get to walk away from the legacy of dead bodies that you stand on. And I don't think that you should get to wash your hands of it that easily. I think you should just I think the way to answer and have accountability for what you've done is to just no longer be an organization that's organized under that text. And you should completely disavow everything in that book that ever made you, that bad to begin with, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I completely hear you. I agree.
Yeah.
And just based on how far I've gotten, like if it was a situation where it was going to be simple and I could just, like drop my parents and go on with my life, and that would be probably what I would do. However, I have a brother that's special needs, and he will always have care. And whenever, my parents pass, that he will be with me. And a lot of times my brother and accessibility to him is sort of used as leverage. Like maintain your lifestyle the way that it needs to be because we can't have our kid around these negative things. And I mean, they did the same thing with us when we were kids, but he will never be in a position where he's going to be fully independent, where he's going to be able to do his own thing, where he's going to be able to formulate his own opinions. And I actually got into a really big argument with my parents not too long ago, because they took him to vote. And I mean, I'm assuming you can assume that how he voted, and just based on, being around my parents and their environment. And, it really irritated me that they took him to vote, because I mean, I feel like, there are 17 states where if you can't if you have legal guardianship, you don't vote. And I just said I didn't think that it should be a thing that happened. And it just caused this huge argument. Like, how dare I give less concern to him? How dare I consider him less of a person? And that wasn't the case. Like, I've advocated for him my entire life.
But you felt that he was being manipulated.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He's had one point thrust into him, which is, look how good Trump is. Mm-hmm. Look how good Trump is.
It is.
Look how evil
it is
Kamala
hard if
is.
you're like, it is hard because there is a fine line that you have to tread there between advocacy and advocating against exploitation, and it's weird. Now, I get it, and I think you're in a sticky position right now. I really do, and I appreciate the sticky position that you're in. I think that where you're at right now, I think it's really good for you to continue on your deconstruction journey and continue asking questions and continue critically evaluating the religion that you are currently still struggling with, and take your kid along for that ride. That's would be because number one, it's going to show some vulnerability from you to show, hey, I was wrong about, I think I might have been wrong at least about the most important shit in the universe, and I'm figuring that out. Number two, what a group activity. What a way to build a family bond and all these things, is saying, okay, let's talk this out together and let's try to figure this out together. And also, what a great exercise of trust. I trust you enough to express this with you and to explore this with you. And furthermore, when you come to a conclusion together, one that validates both of your humanity and allows you both to prosper and thrive and live your authentic selves, that is going to be something that is much more meaningful and much more impactful than if you suddenly out of the blue turn around and say, hey, I know I've been letting you explore churches for a while, but actually turns out this is how I am now, surprise. And now you need to do like that. I think that would just be less shocking. So that's what I would recommend. Out of all of this, I think what I would recommend for you is call in next time I'm on and tell me why you believe in this God, and we'll hash that out. Talk to your friends about why they believe in their God, their version of the same God, and try to think that with them. Explore these channels and call Recovering from Religion and talk to their counselors and whatnot, and just do everything you can to kind of dig through this. And I think you should bring your kid along for that and say, listen, I love you enough to let you know that I'm not sitting well with this whole religion, and especially not the way it talks about you. I think you are more worth it than carrying on with some God that I don't even think I like in the first place. And grow together with your kid. That's what I would say you should be doing. But that's just me. Again, I don't like pets, so that's why I don't have any kids.
Yeah, and I mean, we've brought him along with us on our because we're polyamorous, and he knows our partners. He knows that that's an aspect of our life. He's watched my husband. He's watched his debates with Kent Hovins. So he knows that we support him. He knows that we have differing opinions from, what my parents have, and he just chooses to be in church. And I don't know if he does it to appease my parents, because he is very much a people pleaser. Or if it's just friends that he has that are in the church. But then the question falls into, how good are these friends if they don't know who he actually is? And life sucks.
Yeah, I know some,
as little as possible.
I know some serious people pleasers. I know one guy who people pleased himself into a long marriage. Like it happens. So like that's all the more reason for you to be the one to now be standing up and taking this spearheading this push towards a better secular life. So that's what I encourage for you, Hannah. I've enjoyed talking to you, but we're going to move on to some other calls. I hope we were able to be at least somewhat helpful today.
You absolutely were. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Good luck, Hannah. Thanks for calling. Good luck.
Thanks.
Bye. To the person in the chat who says that my only flaw is that I dislike cats, I don't dislike cats. I can just never finish one in one sitting, and it seems like a waste. Austin, I didn't know you were 37. I thought you and I were the same age.
No, I'm old as fuck.
What? Well, that's fucking shocking. Here now,
how old are you? What are you?
We both...
you 34, 33, something like that?
I'm 32.
You're 32. All right. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, look at you.
I had no idea where you were going with it, right? I'm just a little boy.
You spring pup.
Is it the same at your age now? Because like for me, everybody 29 and younger is a baby. And so is it the same for you? Is it like 35 and under?
Well, it can't be, because my girlfriend is 28, and I'm aware that is she's 29 in like a month. All right. So it's an 8-year difference. It's the biggest I've ever had with anyone I ever dated. But she's it's like, it is weird, because my oldest niece is 25, and I don't like how close those ages are, because my niece to me is like, it's really weird how like my whole life my niece has been 12 years younger than me, and when I'm 25, 12 years is 13. My niece was a 13-year-old little girl, and like when I was 30, my niece was 18, and like 12 years is a big gap, until all of a sudden one day it's like, I guess it's not. I guess my niece is now just like another adult. Like she's just like a 25-year-old person with like a job, and like I don't know. So, but I still don't. Yeah, I don't like it. It's still weird. Yeah.
Just don't think about it. Just don't think about it.
Hey, come on, man. We gotta promote that clip we all just watched.
Well, I'd rather not shill.
Okay, well, Daddy has a $2,000 a month Red Oak habit, and I am your production god, and you will shill when I tell you to shill. Dance for me, baby.
Go, God damn it. Why did my life come to this? Go to patreon.com/call-the-line and donate. God damn it.
This is what happens when we let live chatters write our scripts.